Somebody did them wrong. The world, wasn't fair to them, whatever. And then they did develop their powers. Even Spider-Man, we talked about this, is like Spider-Man at the beginning, he was kind of a dick when he when he first gained his powers. Right. The way he was talking to Aunt May and the way he was talking to Uncle Ben, it's like, well, you can't tell me what to fucking do.
Trying to make money.
Yeah, it's like he's going out wrestling and fighting, and you like just fucking with these dudes. He did not stop the killer that killed his uncle.
Right.
Because why? I'm not getting paid for this.
Right.
That's your fucking job.
If he'd have known.
It's like, well, why did you stop him? That's not my job.
Right.
And what happened? Ended up killing his uncle. Completely changed his life from that point on. He's like, if I just did what I was supposed to do, if I had done the heroic thing,
right,
instead of being the jackass, the complete asshole, my uncle will still be alive. Mm-hmm. It's like, so that a lot of times that takes a shift into your life. And when I realized for myself, where I was on my journey, that this wasn't who I wanted the world to see. That I didn't want the world to see this, big, angry, this big, angry, aggressive guy that people were actually afraid of. People were fucking afraid. And honestly, after a little while, that started really bothering me, because it was like, I wanted to protect myself. I didn't want the world to be afraid of me.
He gets to know you if you're afraid.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I lost out on a lot of opportunity from, people I could have known, opportunities I could have had, because of who I was becoming at that time. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, this has got to change. I gotta change who I am. It's like, I gotta go from being that Venom to being that Spider-Man.
Right.
Welcome to the Warrior's Way Home podcast.
What's up, guys? It's your boy Travis here with my co-host Edmund.
What's going on?
We are Warrior's Way Home, where it's our job to help men define their masculinity to become capable modern-day warriors.
That's right.
We got some great stuff coming today. Today we are talking about the powers you develop when you start on the path of becoming the Ronin, or the superhero. In this case, is what we're talking about. It's like the I think all of us have seen Spider-Man and Superman and all these different things. Iron Man, all these. There's called the hero's journey.
Right.
So that's basically what we're talking about. We're talking
different
about
archetypes on the hero's
exactly.
journey.
So we're talking about your hero's journey. And the powers you kind of develop on the way to become that, because most of the stories we listen to when it comes, especially like Spider-Man, is when we really got into and started talking about. When I used to watch a lot as a kid, you start to develop those powers as you become that hero over time. But a lot of times when you're first starting, there's certain points where you can go different ways, can take different paths. So we wanted to dig into that a little bit, because there's a lot of information out here, between, masculinity channels and, stoicism and red pill and black pill and
it's like, who do you listen
to? And all these different, all these, alpha male, beta male, sigma male. It's like it's all these. There seems like there's all these different paths, but who do you become when you're taking your own? Because at the end of the day, no matter who you follow or what kind of dogma you may kind of start digging into, you end up on your own path. So
at least you should.
Yeah.
Ultimately, exactly. When you take in so many different influences, and that's the point that we're really trying to make today, is that when you're constantly listening to other people for advice, you don't know what is your own thoughts anymore, and how you feel about the situation. So we bring all this information to you, and it's not like we're not necessarily different from all those other people who are trying to influence you. Obviously, that's what we're trying to bring you is to your own path, though. Instead of saying this is the way you should do things, we're giving you options. So, and the path of the Ronin is a very good example of that, because a Ronin, for those who aren't aware, was a masterless samurai. It was somebody who was at one point in service to his shogun or whatever his military state was. There was some type of collapse, and then they were just kind of freelancing, either working as security guards, bodyguards, enforcers, instructors, assassins. They were
just completely left that life behind and became something different.
Exactly, a wanderer.
Yep.
So, but everybody who wanders isn't lost, right? So by figuring out what your path is and how you want to operate in the world, you then get to pick and choose, whether it's from different religions or different self-help books or spiritual guidance. You get to now pick whatever influences you, and it shapes how you move against what everybody's already trying to get you to do in the world.
Exactly. So one thing that brought Edmund and I together, other than the martial arts and doing that for years, decades now, that makes us old. Decades of doing decades of doing the martial arts and everything like that. The other thing that brought us together and we kind of both meld on is comic book anime nerds.
Yeah. For sure.
It's like, so you can be tough and still like anime. Just so we're clear,
right?
It's like you can be a badass. A lot of badasses still. A lot of guys in the UFC love fucking anime.
For real. Everybody always mentions like, oh, Bruce Lee was my inspiration.
Yeah.
You're a movie nerd because like you saw him in all the movies. Jet Li, Jackie Chan, Chow Yun-Fat.
Yep.
The list goes on. Donnie Yen. Yep. All these guys. It's like if you love action movies, you love action heroes. Because like, what other genre are you seeing one dude beat up like 10 people?
Then you get into the superheroes now.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a big thing.
Extraordinary feats. Like that's what we're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. So the superhero aspect is one thing I think we talked about that most of us can identify. Between Marvel and DC, whatever side you're on. Blood, Crip, doesn't matter. We don't judge. Kind of a little bit, but whatever side you're on is like most of us can identify with it because it's one of those things that, especially if you're looking at the masculine nowadays, it's like if you're looking for it in media, chances are you're gonna be really tapping into the superheroes. It's like a lot of us started with that, identifying with the strength and going from being weak to being strong. And one that like we talked about, we really started digging into Spider-Man because he was just the average typical dude.
Right.
When he didn't have his, before he got his powers, and even after he got his powers, he was still trying to be, still trying to create something of himself when he wasn't wearing that suit, because that power he had when he had that suit on was way different than who he was when he didn't.
Yeah.
So
it didn't really transfer. So it wasn't like
he wasn't like a Superman. Whereas like you're just indestructible type deal.
You were born this way.
Yeah, he had real problems like rent.
Right.
It's just, relationship issues, all these different things, and trying to balance that out. So it's one of those things that we really, as an avatar for what we're talking about for the conversation, we really started digging into. Like, well, the powers he developed over time, how does that make sense with who we become as men as we start growing and getting onto this path of becoming, developing that warrior mindset and becoming more of the warrior, becoming that Ronin. How do those powers kind of fit in to what we were talking about?
After Uncle Ben died, it was a while before he really got a mentor. You know what I mean? Like, because if you look at the movies, Uncle Ben died, you hear about Uncle Ben dying, but you immediately see Spider-Man with Iron Man.
Yeah.
You immediately give him some type of like father figure or somebody to look up to who had a similar, like they were both super smart. One knew how to get money, the other one didn't. He brought him under his wing, gave him technology and all this stuff, taught him about the world. But a lot of the times in the comic books, there was nobody to do that. So Spider-Man started with whatever his uncle taught him, but that's all he had.
Yeah, and they changed it up a little bit as they went from the older Spider-Man, which I rock with, to the newer Spider-Man, which other people rock with. That's cool too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that mentor aspect is like, he took a lot of those teachings he had from that mentor and moved it into carrying with great power comes great responsibility. Line everybody freaking knows now.
Right.
But what about guys like who may not have had that? A lot of us didn't have the Uncle Ben.
Right.
Hey guys, quick interruption to the episode. Let me tell you about the 8 Inner Gates, our personal growth and self-mastery course that's been showing men just like you how to get unstuck and take their life, relationships, career, or even business to the next level. The same principles that have helped us to find purpose, overcome depression, command respect, dominate in our careers, and become honorable men, we're now sharing with our brothers. So if you want more of this life, you're capable of achieving more of this life, and you're tired of just drifting through it, click down in the description of the episode or in the pinned comment and gain access to the first 2 lessons in the course, completely free on us. Click now and begin unlocking the gates blocking your success.
So how did we develop on our journey as we were going? So we're going to kind of dig into that and start going over some of the powers he had and what are those powers you develop when you're on this path to become the best version of you.
Between them, for sure.
So the first power we discussed and started talking about was that the superhuman agility. You know, it's like Spider-Man's known for that, you know, jumping from this building to that wall to over here, diving underneath the bus,
right?
All that good stuff is like
Acrobatics.
that agile individual, you know, stuff that, you know,
Right.
if he was probably a little bit bigger, probably wouldn't be able to do, you know,
Right.
but so you had this kind of smaller frame dude, but he could move,
Right.
you know, and make those moves like, you know, most people can't. So, you know, with that, we talked about, you know, with the superhuman agility, what does that kind of represent for most guys? Like, what does that represent for us? And the thing we talked about was the, you know, the flexibility of mind.
Yes.
You know,
Yes,
having a flexible, moldable mind. You know, because most of us aren't going to be jumping from a building to a bus to the street to a street lamp. Most of us, unless you're doing parkour,
Right.
like, you're probably not going to be just, you know, jumping off a building, turning a backflip and landing and then rolling, you know,
Right.
like you know, as people say, the real ninjas do. Is like most of us aren't going to be doing that. So, you know, when we're on this path, how do we become more flexible, more agile in our mind and our thinking? You know.
So, what we're talking about is having a more dynamic mind, right? How you do that is by having the forethought when it kind of comes to, or actually better, being able to think on your feet is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So when you're able to think on your feet, you're able to make not snap judgments, but more decisions kind of in that moment that are going to help you kind of achieve that goal that you're trying to get to, or just avoid the obstacle that may be the problem.
Yeah.
I think when we had first, I actually kind of borrow this real quick because these are my original notes. Yeah, so with flexibility of mind, what comes to mind for me is being able to think on your feet and just be able to make those quicker decisions. But that comes from a line of, I think, patience.
Yeah.
At first, you need to be able to recognize where you actually need to go. You need to see that other building or that lamppost or that street corner that you plan on landing on. All right, how am I going to get there? You have to be agile and being flexible with how you're maneuvering through those obstacles.
Yeah.
If you're too singular minded or you're too rigid, you're not going to have the ability to see what your other options are. You need to get from A to B.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, well, I'm only going to go straight because that's the way to get there. Well, there's a building in front of you. There's a wall. There's some type of obstacle that you need to get around. It's not always going to be a straight line to your destination. You have to be able to, or your goals. You know what I'm saying? I have plenty of goals where I was like, all right, I'm going to do this, this, this. Sometimes I need to go back I need to jump ahead a step because I thought I needed to do it in this order. Well, sometimes you need an extra piece before you can do some of those steps.
Yeah.
So you need to figure out, okay, well, if I can't go, I wish we had a thing I could draw with. If I got to go from here to here, but I actually need to go here first, all right, well, how can I maneuver there and then make my way over? Basically, how can I still do what I need to do, but not be so beholden to a structure that obviously isn't going to work in that situation.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you know, a lot of times, you know, we, like you said, we think from A to B, and we think, it's like, oh, I'm just going to draw a straight line, you know, quickest way to straight line there. It's like, yeah, that sounds good, but in real life, it's not going to be here. It's going to be like this.
Yeah, it's going to be like Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be like a web. It's going to be, you know, you're not going to have a lot of times a straight path. And being, even with your goals, you know, as a guy, you know, because that's the biggest thing with us is like setting those goals as a man, and you know, achieving those goals, going after it, getting after it. And it's things that get pushed a lot now too. And it's great, but the thing they don't talk about is being able to be flexible with that. It's like, okay, your goal is to lose this much weight. Your goal is to make this much money and these different things like that. So you set fully your mind on that thing. But if you're too rigid with that, you know, you can't see that there's an easier way for you to do it sometimes. You know, sometimes just going straight on is going to be, you know, the harder way. You know, it's kind of like when you're hiking in the woods. You know, if you're hiking and you know you got to go from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain. Yeah, you know, the straight path is great, but a lot of times there's no path there.
Yeah.
So are you going to bushwhack your own path up the hill, or are you going to take that well-defined path? You know, finding other guys who have done what you want to do, rather than having to try and figure out yourself.
Right.
You know, I'm sure some superheroes have people that they look up to. You know, same just like other guys do. You know, mentorship. All these different things like that to make your path to your goal a lot easier, rather than having to just bushwhack and, you know, and struggle and fight and crawl and dig and scratch and bite all the way to your goal to the point where when you get it, you're like, man, that shit wasn't even fucking worth it. It's just like, you know, or a lot of guys quit halfway through because they don't realize how hard that's going to be, you know, because they don't have that flexibility in their mind. When it starts getting hard, they're like, okay, well, this is either too hard or it's getting, it's just too much, you know, and they end up quitting because they want to go this way so much instead of taking the other path when they would have got there a lot quicker. It might have taken them a little bit longer. That's the other thing. We think it should take this much time. It may take you a little bit longer if you take that winding path up, but it'll get you there a lot easier and a lot less bruised up and beat up.
Two things actually that just brought to mind. Three things actually. So you don't know that the path that the path that you didn't suspect might be more fun. Yep. It might be might be more enjoyment to taking a path that's less traveled. I had one of my old coworkers that gave me this plaque that sat on his desk for a long time, and it said, "Don't go where the path is clear. Make a path and make somebody else's way." It was like make somebody else's way easier or something like that. But like basically by going the path less traveled, there are things to be found within that, but it's the pain and the hurt and the struggle that people aren't aware of before they start. Or it's the frustration of, oh, well, if I'm going to trailblaze a path. I had a conversation about this the other day. When you want to go to work for a big company, as opposed to going to work for a startup, you think the big company is all well established and they there's no chance that they can fail and all this other type of stuff. But then you got the startup, or they'll pay you a certain salary here. Maybe the startup will pay you a little less, but the work is more rewarding. Most people will automatically choose the big company because they don't want to put in the work or the work that comes with that feeling of, I was able to do more with a smaller company, but this big machine is already running. It's going to run with or without you. I matter over here, potentially. I don't matter so much over here, but I'm going to get paid to be comfortable. Having that flexibility of mind is like figuring out what your options actually are. Is it worth being a cog in the machine for the money, or are you going to try to do something that's a bit more meaningful? Maybe you don't get paid as much, but all your needs are met.
Yeah, you know, it's like being adaptable. You know, it's like we had a conversation about my friend at school, straight A students. I'm just gonna put it out there. You know, the Asian culture has a different mindset when it comes to school. So I believe he was I think he was Korean, or I think he was Korean if I'm not mistaken. And one day, you know, we were in high school. We were walking down the hall and we saw him. Man, he's walking around like a freaking zombie, dude. You know, just like zoned out and just like eyes kind of bugged out. I'm like, what's wrong with you? He's like, what happened? Somebody died? He's like, no. I was like, well, what's wrong? I got a B. And I'm like, okay. And but what's the problem? He's like, I got a B. And it clicked. I was like, oh, it's so all his life has been drilled in that only A's, only A's were good enough, to the point where when he got a B, it destroyed him. It absolutely destroyed him. He was not flexible. He was not adaptable at all. There was none of that there was none of that flexibility to where like you getting a B isn't the end of your entire world, and then throw him off for however long it did. I don't even remember if I talked to him after that, because I don't remember where he went, honestly. This is like so, but it was just so devastating for him. And I was like, bro, I said a B. I said. And my thing was, it's like, if a B is going to take you out like this, it's like, what the fuck is life going to do to you? It's like when something happens in life that you don't expect, when you take a hit financially, when something happens in a relationship, how are you going to handle this? Are you going to be able to be flexible with these things when these things come up? Or are you so rigid and that's just going to break you at the end of the day? You want to be bamboo. You know, you don't necessarily want to be oak. It's just like, oak looks great. It's awesome. But that shit will break. Bamboo, you could bend that thing all the way back here and it whips back to shape. It's like, so, you know, you want to be able to be adaptable. And I think a lot of times we as men can be inflexible with certain things. It ends up causing us a lot of pain. It ends up causing a lot of struggles. So when you're on this path, being flexible, being adaptable to the things like Spider-Man when he's moving around the city, you want to be that way in your life. Be able to adapt to the situations that you find yourself in, even if they're not the ones that you necessarily might want.
For sure.
Cool. All right, so the next one, the spidey sense and those heightened senses. So, you know,
the Peter tingle.
Huh?
The Peter tingle.
That sounds so fucking dirty.
I'm talking about from the movie, like, because the movie, what was it? No Way Home. They called it the Peter tingle, and I was like,
don't call it that ever again. Don't call that ever again.
Nope. That's on record. Again, watch the movie. They call it Peter tingle.
I've never heard it called that before. The Peter
Tingle. You're not a real fan, then. You're not watching the movies.
Hey, I watched the real Spider-Man movies. Okay.
Which one is that one?
The first ones when he just that went along with the comic books where Spider-Man was actually an adult and not a high school kid.
Yeah. What other ones are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about the new movies where he's still in high school when he gets his powers and all this going on. Spider-Man was an adult when he had his power. Anyway, we're not gonna get into that because that's gonna be a whole different conversation. Because it's like
this might be a Patreon conversation because
it's one of those purists.
Many facts that he's wrong. Okay.
In the comic books, Spider-Man wasn't an adult.
Sir, we're gonna move on.
Spidey sense.
Spidey sense.
All right. The tingle that he was talking about. The pervert tingle. The pervert tingle.
Anyway, we said that the Spidey sense was heightened senses and what I saw as foresight.
Yeah.
So when you see in the movies and things tend to slow down when that spider sense is activated.
Yeah.
He's able to get a heightened sense of perception of what's around him, what's actually dangerous to him. Mm-hmm. It really just goes back to that natural instinct, but they it's called the spider sense. For forethought, this kind of also goes back to with that flexibility of mind because but it's like that first step, which is taking a real objective view of what's going on around you.
Yeah.
Being able to see what truly matters in that situation and where you can decide to utilize that wisdom and kind of move so that you are either out of the way, moving closer to your goals, or just being able to avoid that.
Your next 5 moves.
Your next 5 moves.
We talked about it in a past episode, where we were talking about having
one
that.
Of the Dokudo episodes.
Yeah, one of the Dokudo episodes where we were talking about. So definitely check out the Dokudo episode because some of these pieces definitely fit together. Mm-hmm. But we talked about being able to think as a man, at least 2 steps ahead,
right?
Versus just making a decision and only go, just stopping right there. It's like I think we made the example of like if you're talking to if you see a woman out, and you see her, but she has a reputation. It's like, okay, if I interact with her, if I bring her into my life, if I go, if whatever it may be, even if it's just a short interaction or that long-term interaction, how is this going to go? How's this going to play out? Does she add value to my life?
Right.
Is she a succubus that's going to suck me dry?
Right. Right. Now it's being dirty. All right.
Well, you started with the Peter Tingle, so. But yeah, thinking, farther ahead than just, the tip of your nose, or the tip of your dick for some guys. Being able to think ahead. It's like if I do this, what's the reaction? Mm-hmm. It's like we see those guys out and have heard those stories where you're out, dude steps under the guy's shoe or bumps him or something like that. Next thing you know, fight breaks out. Mm-hmm. But if you're thinking ahead, like, okay, this dude stepped in my shoe. Is it worth me interacting with this dude? What about him? What does he look like to me?
Right.
Is he just some regular guy, or is this some dude with like a spider tattoo on the back of his head? A neck tattoo. It's like a MS-13 sleeve on this side. Who if I talk to this guy, I'd be like, hey, bro, you gonna apologize? Is it really worth it?
Right.
Is a scuff on my shoe worth it getting in it with this dude who's probably, just by the looks of him, probably isn't having that great of a time?
Right.
And is this actually disrespect, or was this just an accident?
Right.
That's the other thing. Is he blatantly disrespecting me? Did he come in?
Right.
Or was this just he stepped in my shoe and be like, hey man, where I could just let it go after that? Or is this something I'm really willing to fight for?
Right.
Did he scuff my shoe, or did he cuss out my girl?
Right.
These are 2 different things.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be dealt with in different ways. So what are my steps? It's like if I interact with this guy,
it shouldn't evoke the same response.
Exactly. If I interact with this guy, if it goes this way, what do I do? If it goes this way, what do I do? Mm-hmm. Same thing when you're talking about self-defense. It's like walking down the street. I do this all the time. It's like, and it just kind of happens automatically. If I'm walking down the street and I see somebody coming towards me, I'm like, if they were going to attack me when they get close to me, let's say this dude pulled out a stick out from nowhere, how would I react to this? What's my next move? Or if I'm walking by and he just decides to throw a sucker punch, what would be my move at that moment? Right. Would I dodge? Would I grab the arm? What would my moves be? And I try and I test myself with that. It's like, okay, I want to have 3 moves. Mm-hmm. It's like, what would my 3 moves be if he did this? If they decided to do this? If a car pulled up, a zoo jumped out and wanted to attack me, what would I do? Mm-hmm. And I run through those scenarios. But it helps you play chess, not checkers. Right. When you have to think and start teaching yourself to think and use that superpower to think a couple moves ahead to where you have that spidey sense. So when stuff goes on, things kind of slow down for you. It's the same thing that happens in training. It's like over time, you get less fazed by a punch coming at your face if you've had it happen over and over and over and over again,
Right.
versus that first time where it's just like, ah, and you're just staring at it, screaming, and
Right.
you know,
you develop that instinct.
Yeah, exactly. Time tends to slow down the more you've trained yourself, not just your body, but also your mind to these things. So you can actually take advantage of that spidey sense and start thinking some moves ahead and actually plan out your next move versus just doing things and hoping it works out.
For sure. The third one that we have here is the healing factor. So everybody is familiar with, well, if you're familiar with superheroes, you're familiar with the healing factor.
Everybody's a superhero.
It's the ability, right.
Are there any superheroes who don't have a healing factor?
No, the cool
like
ones.
Actually superheroes who have superpowers?
Batman.
He doesn't have superpowers.
He doesn't have a healing factor though.
Yeah, but I'm saying any superheroes who actually have superpowers that don't have also a healing factor. I can't think of it.
Most of the X-Men, I would say. Scott doesn't, or Cyclops doesn't, Xavier doesn't. I kind of say Jean does because she has like the Phoenix Force. If you were resurrecting from the dead, then you got a healing factor. Yeah. You have the best healing factor. Yeah. But anyway, that's that like ability to fall off of the top story of a building and then go walk and down the street.
Like, I broke a rib.
Right.
You broke a rib?
I got a headache. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So in fantasy land, in the superhero world, it's like everybody has a healing factor, even the ones who don't.
Right. And also, some people count white privilege as being a superpower.
We're not even gonna go there. We're not even gonna
get into the comments and let us know how you feel about white privilege. No. Anyway, so we said
white privilege is a superpower. Holy shit.
We looked at the healing factor as emotional resilience. So when we think about emotional resilience, it's that ability to have somebody insult you or basically like feed you negative energy, but you're not taking it. You if somebody is, like you said in that example of somebody scuffing your shoe, trying to get into a fight with you, that emotional resilience is me not giving in to the fact that you want to fight me and just being like, well, fuck it then, we in a fight. It's being like, sir, it was literally an accident, or just walking away or saying like, hey, whatever, because your ego is being taken out of the situation. And like you said, having that awareness of where am I, who am I actually dealing with, and how I'm going to be able to get out of it. When you don't care as much, or at least let me say it this way, when your ego isn't involved with your decision making, you make better decisions. So you're not emotionally affected by whatever the situation is that's trying to get you to try to get that illicit response. You're able to be like, all right, well, this is not a big deal. As long as I'm able to go home tonight to my family or whatever the situation is, I don't have to deal with you. So he's all been out of shape about whatever's going on. I don't have to be. So I'm in a better emotional spot so that I can diffuse the situation and go home.
I was even thinking about like in relationships, you know,
especially in relationships,
most guys are going to experience some kind of heartbreak or something along those lines. You know, having that emotional resilience is to not let that stop you in your life.
Right.
It's to not, you know, stop growing right at that moment.
Right.
You know, but there's some guys who like never make it past that moment where, you know, they got broke up with in high school and they never get over that chick, or they never, you know, really become the man they could have become because they never got over this situation with their relationship, or somebody died, or whatever it may be. Somebody did them wrong. You know, abuse is a perfect example of this. Is that childhood abuse. Some people never make it out of the things that happened to them as kids.
Right.
Is that, you know, because they never developed that emotional resilience. They never developed that healing factor to kind of get over and push through these things and grow from them. You know, it just became one of those things that just stopped them. You know, it broke. Some people go through things that break them forever. You know, and it's an unfortunate thing, and life isn't always, you know, fair to where you're gonna get, you know, where shit's not gonna happen to you. Shit's gonna happen to you, bro. I'm just gonna tell you that right now. It's gonna happen. Life's gonna punch you in the face at times. It's like, but can you handle that? Can you push past that? Can you take that hit? Can you take that beating? Even in martial arts, can you take that ass whooping and keep it moving? There's gonna be times where you lose a fight. I've lost fights. Don't get it twisted. I have not won all the fights I've been in. I mean, in the street, yeah, but even in the dojo, you know, in the gym, it's like there's guys who wipe me across the floor. you know, and it's one of those things you got to be able to get up and keep taking that whooping. It's like there's a thing in martial arts called the circle of death. And in order to, you know, get your belt, in a lot of cases, depending on what rank you're going up in, they'll have you in what self-defense you've gone through. And if, say you trained to, you know, defend yourself against 3 guys, 3 types, one in the front, one in the side, and one in the back. Yeah. Well, as part of your test, you're going to have to fight 3 people as part of your test. You got to stand there and have them attack and defend yourself. But you have to be adaptable to do that. You know, it's like, and there's gonna be times where you get just beat up. There's gonna be times where you just have to stand there and just take that beating, take that kick, take that punch, so you can learn how to take it. Right. Because if I always teach you how to dodge, but I never show you what it's like to get hit, that moment you get hit, you're done. You know, so you have to build up that resilience as a man to be able to sometimes take that punishment that life has to dish out, and to be able to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep on going.
The best example I've ever seen in my life personally is there was a friend of mine back home where we were a part of a charity boxing event, and we faced off against each other, and I won. But my wife didn't understand at the time. Is like, I had trained with this guy. We had actually fought at that point in front of people and everything. He invited me to his wedding. It was a beautiful wedding. You know what I'm saying? Like, to be able to build that relationship off of you punching each other in the face.
The bonds of battle.
Like, what? Like, a lot of women won't understand that. There are women who take part in that, and they become good friends. But that's a lot. That's a lot of where that emotional resilience comes from. Is like, can you continue to be friends with somebody who is either physically, emotionally, or psychologically hurt you?
Yeah, one of my best friends. We're friends to this day, and our relationship started out with me chasing him around the playground trying to whoop his ass. Yeah, that's how our relationship started.
That's very much a boy thing. Like, boys want to fight each other.
He said some stuff. Friends. I got mad. I chased him, and eventually I never actually called him. He's finally like, whoa, man, look. You're not gonna catch me.
Logic.
It's like, I'm not gonna stop running. We're both just gonna die going around this playground. Right. It's like, I'm sorry, okay? All right. Let's go hang out at my house tomorrow. And we became friends, man. It's like, off of that, me wanting to whoop his ass. Right. It's just like,
I've had a lot of friendships.
So yeah, a lot of guys, and unfortunately, I don't think a lot of guys experience that now as much. Yeah. Of like, you're fighting in the street with somebody, and after you guys are both bloody, or somebody won, maybe somebody might not even win. You might just beat the shit out of each other, and that's and guys will fight and then go have a beer afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. Or at least that's how it should be. Yeah, but I think you'll find that in the gym more than you will in the street,
especially now, because I think I think the emotional resilience isn't as promoted now, because a lot of times now people want to shoot when you get in a fight and you lose, or different things like that. So we got to start developing that as men and really start tapping into that healing factor, that emotion, be able to let that scar up and keep it moving. Don't just leave that an open wound to fester.
Right.
You know what I mean?
For sure. Next, we have basically what Spider-Man is famous for, web slinging.
Yeah.
What being able to use. How would you explain this?
Oh man, with the web slinging, I think let's see real quick.
Well, we said it was discipline, but I'm curious.
So with the web slinging, a lot of what you see with Spider-Man using his web in real situations is to capture somebody, is to like keep a building from falling, to keep you see him use a lot to like pull a car off a bridge. Those famous scenes in the movies where he has web line this way, web line this way. So when we talk about web sling, we're talking about that web that he builds. And in the first movies, it actually comes out of him. Some he has the actual capsules, but that's a side thing. But it's that strength that he has. It allows him to do some of the things that he's capable of. Some guys just have the immediate strength that they can, pick up a building. For him, it's that web. If I get that web on you, I can hold that. Right. If that bus going over there, I can pull that bus back on. But that web, it wouldn't matter how strong he is if that web broke. Mm-hmm. So that discipline, I think, is that web for a lot of us. It's that thing that holds us in our life. It can be that, a lot of times that foundation for us is like, if you look at guys who are not disciplined, their life is chaos. Their life is chaos. Their relationships are probably in a lot of cases garbage, and they're probably not happy with their life and what they're doing with their life. When you don't have that discipline to hold tight to those things, especially when things get chaotic, because when life gets crazy,
because it will,
exactly, when life gets crazy, you have to be able to have those things that can have have that flexibility, but that strength like that web.
Right.
You know, even though his web is strong, it's still flexible. If you look at a spider's web, I think they say it's like 10 times as strong as steel.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at it in the breeze, it's flowing in the breeze.
Right.
It's like, but if you actually, you know, expanded that up to like real size, human size, it would be stronger than any steel cable that you could find out there.
Mm-hmm.
It could literally probably hold a ship off of a building,
right,
without worrying about it whatsoever. So the strength and that flexibility kind of comes into play to be that discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Because when life is crazy, you know, your discipline is going to kind of fluctuate. You know, when life is crazy, you might not be as disciplined in the gym and have to put more discipline towards work at times. But you still got to have some discipline there. You can't just completely let it go.
Right.
So at times it's going to fluctuate. So you have to have the strength to hold on to these different areas in life. Because as a guy, you're going to have to juggle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like if you think you're going to have true balance in your life, I think you're going to be mistaken. Because
right.
I mean, you know, just get a girlfriend and a full-time job and see how balanced your life is.
Listen, you won't be able to spell balance. It's hard. Yeah.
Yep.
No, for sure. So yeah, when we talked about this, we talked about web slinging being disciplined, and also when we're talking about the Ronin, this is your sword. This is the thing that you. I think they said that for a samurai, the blade is like their soul. They're supposed to treat it the same, and so you're supposed to become one with that weapon, and that's through that discipline.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't even say the sword is discipline. It's more like discernment, because you're using that sword to cut down all the things that would keep you from staying on that path.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that takes discipline. You have to know how to use discernment. So you still have to practice with it. You still have to have a discipline, but just understand that blade part of what we're talking about for a swordsman is the actual discernment, because you get to say, okay, the bills are coming in and my girl's tripping and my car doesn't work and I'm about to get fired. And it's like, no, you know what? What can I control? I can control when my bills get paid on time. I can control how I react to the way that she's acting. I can control what I do to make sure my car is still running. I can make sure that I do the best at my job so that I can keep this job until I find what I really want to do.
Yeah.
It's by cutting loose the distractions and all that negative activity that goes on in your brain as you're trying to figure shit out.
Mm-hmm.
That helps.
Yeah.
So that discipline keeps you on path.
Yeah. Or even, you know, to web slinging, even just having enough strength in that discipline to hold those things back just enough for you to be able to make it through and get what you need to do.
Exactly.
If that, you know, if you see you see those scenes where like the building's falling and everything's like that, he used that web, it spreads out to catch that.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing that, and while he's saving that person underneath it, it's holding it just enough to him for him to be able to get that person and get them gone.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, so that discipline holds back that stuff. It's not, you know, it may not hold it, but it holds it back just long enough for you to actually make it through that situation. That's what your discipline is going to do. It's gonna keep you sane just long enough to make it through.
I hope y'all. that obstacle. I really hope y'all caught that, like, because that's, even though we talked about it before, it's when you make the comparison like that. Like, I never thought about it that way. It's like your discipline holds off the bullshit just enough for you to get done what you need to get done, and that's really what I've been feeling here lately. It's like, because I'll go through really big challenges. And even small challenges, but something that challenges me, and I'll be like, oh, I'll be done. I can take a break. Yeah. But then in that break, I will feel myself start to slip into the things that kept me from doing what I wanted to do earlier. Let's say, you know, like, you know, you're doing really good with the diet. Oh, the thing I was doing the diet for is over. Now I can eat whatever I want, and then you just slowly slip back into it, instead of being like, all right, how about for the next couple of days I eat what I want, but I go back to my diet at the end of the week. That discipline keeps you from blowing back up to 280 or whatever that your obstacle was. But you realize, like, I'll eat pizza or something, or a burger, and I'll be like, I know I should be eating this shit. But when I eat that salad, I don't have that, oh, I know I should be eating this salad. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
one less thing for you to worry about. Yeah. Is like, if you have that in check, it's just like we're organized. Like, over time, if you work out at the same time, the same days, you change up your workout. Don't do the same workout. But the structure of it, the discipline of it, sets into place like concrete. Yeah. Doesn't matter what else is going on in your life. You could be arguing with your girl, having this situation at work. You're like, shit. But at 5:30 or at 6 p.m., you're at the gym. It's regardless. It's like, you don't have to worry about that aspect of your life, because the discipline keeps you going with that so much. So you don't have to worry about, like, oh, all this is going on, and I'm being a fat boy.
Right.
It's like I don't have to worry about that because this discipline has gotten me going on such a path that it just becomes second nature to me.
Right.
I don't have to think about it. It's just programmed.
It's a part of me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it is. Yeah. The last one is going to be the superhuman strength.
Yeah.
You know, the key mark of all superheroes. You know, superhero strength.
Right.
With that, we were talking about the superhero strength. A lot of times is that work ethic.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So when we talk about work ethic, or rather when we talk about superheroes that have super strength,
Mm-hmm.
what is the point of having super strength for a lot of heroes? It's so that you basically get to test those limits. When you see somebody with super strength catch an asteroid or pick up a train, or like what's that old like Superman cartoon where it's like he lays down on the tracks,
catching the speeding train.
Yeah, catching the speeding train,
jumping over the building, catching the speeding train.
Yeah, what is the whole? Why would you want to see that? Because I want to see an example of somebody stronger than me. I want to be able to see what that strength can actually do. The whole point of that, and the reason why you get for Superman, you get villains like Doomsday, is because you want to see that strength pushed to its absolute limit.
Yes.
Now, why do we say that that's like work ethic? Because again, a lot of what you go through in life is going to test the limits of your work ethic.
Yeah.
How hard you going to work when you broke? When you got 2 pennies to rub together? How hard can you work then? How hard can you work when you're rich?
Yeah.
It's the same test, but it's on a different level. I think it's easier to start from the bottom than it is to keep when you get to a certain like apex or when you reach your goal.
To stay hungry.
Stay hungry.
To stay hungry.
Oh my God, that's. So like in martial arts, that's a perfect example because when you become champ, you did all the hard work to be some type of champion of something, but now you got all these people behind you.
Now you got to keep it.
You got to keep it.
You fought to get it, but now you got to fight to keep it. And you see a lot of champs, or don't stay champions very long because they had that hunger, that that drive, they had that dog in them when they were fighting to get that belt. But then they get that belt, and then the partying starts, and then the drugs kick off, and then there's the women, and then
the money comes in.
The money, and then next you're slacking off on your workouts, or you think you're that dude, and you're coming in like Flyboy and not putting in that same effort.
Right.
Like it's like before you sparred for an hour, now you spar for 30 minutes. You're like, oh, I'm good. I gotta go. I got an interview and I can't fuck up my face, so we can only spar like a little bit, so I can go do this interview real quick.
Right.
It's like so they don't stay as hungry, and then you see that they don't keep that belt very long in a lot of cases. But even with the superheroes, you notice like in most superhero movies, like when they gain their power, Spider-Man is the first. You always have that training montage.
Right.
You always seem to have it from Spider-Man to Iron Man to all these guys. There's always this training montage in a lot of these movies. When you take somebody going from the zero to the hero, there's always that training, that Rocky training montage. The Rocky music comes on, and you see them trying to fly or falling off a fucking building or finding out what the limits of their power, what the limits of their strength are. And that's where that superhero strength and that work ethic comes in. Because like you said, the same work ethic that you have when you first start is going to change as you get towards your goal. A lot of times more is going to be required of you.
Right.
If you're starting in the mailroom, you're going to have a certain work ethic to get to that next spot. But when you become CEO, CFO, CEO, whatever you want to be, that's a whole different type of work ethic that's going to be required of you. And probably in a different way. It's like, so that has to be able to change. You can't keep doing the mailroom work ethic when you're the CEO, or you're not going to be CEO very long.
Right.
You can't keep having that work ethic when you're just starting boxing amateur as when you do when you're a pro. They fight differently. If you watch a pro train compared to where you see an amateur train, somebody's just getting into boxing for fitness. It doesn't even look like the same sport from amateur to pro. If you look at any sport, it doesn't look the same. It's like that work ethic is totally something different is required of you.
Right.
When you're shooting for your goals, the bigger your goal is, where I was before in the past with starting to become a trainer, working at a gym is much different now than what I have to do. Having my own gym and the massage and all these different things, own my own business. So much more is required of me than was before. My work ethic had to change dramatically. Right. It wasn't just writing profiles and talking to clients and putting together programs. Now it's taxes and this and marketing and all these different things. That work ethic changes.
Right.
It has to change. Otherwise, you're not going to keep what you got.
For sure. For sure. So we talked a lot about kind of what comes with those superpowers that are on the path. And again, whether we're talking about Spider-Man or Ronin, a lot of these things still overlap. You still have to have an incredible amount of agility. You still have to have some type of sixth sense that helps you through your situations. You have to have a healing factor, basically not giving into the ego.
Yep.
Either whether it's web slinging or a sword, you still have to have that discipline. And that superhuman strength is just that work ethic. That sometimes that work ethic separates you from whoever your opposition is. But one thing that we wanted to touch on is kind of the negative side of that, the shadow side of that. And we'll end with this: is for every Spider-Man, there's a Venom.
Oh yeah.
There's somebody who got the exact same powers. Has all the abilities of a hero, and decides to become a villain, or at best an anti-hero.
Yep.
What does when we talk about the symbiote, or when we talk about Venom, what does that look like to you? What is the opposite? What's the antithesis of a Spider-Man that has all these same abilities?
There are even some villains, anti-villains that become heroes. A lot of times it depends on where you're at in that journey. We spoke about earlier, is like, if I'm be honest, when I started on this path, this journey, I became Venom for a while. I developed myself into, this big guy, senior year high school, I was 210 pounds, 18-inch neck, 24-inch chest, 20-inch biceps. I was just a big mountain, strong, super strong, set records at the school. But the reason I did that is because I didn't want people to fuck with me. If I'm be real about it, is like, I did all that to kind of protect myself. Always had a scowl on my face, wasn't really approachable. If you knew me, you knew who I was. You knew I was just a big fucking teddy bear at the end of the day. The one that shouldn't be tested, because then you turn into a bear. But so the people who knew me knew who I was, knew my heart. But the people who didn't know me were like, man, why you always look so fucking mad? Is that he just looks mad and mean, and just walk around aggressive, like the C would part when I came down the hallway. So people would be like, oh shit, and just move out the way. And I thought it was because of my size, but a lot of it was because of that presence I gave off. So it's like, so I actually used mine to kind of start to protect myself. And I can't say that I was using it for the good. I can't say that. I was using that to try and push that world away, so that I didn't have to, so nobody could hurt me. And a lot of villains, if you look at it, a lot of their journey starts with that hurt. Somebody did them wrong. The world, wasn't fair to them, whatever. And then they develop their powers. Even Spider-Man, we talked about this, is like Spider-Man at the beginning, he was kind of a dick when he first gained his powers. Right. The way he was talking to Aunt May, and the way he was talking to Uncle Ben. It's like, well, you can't tell me what to fucking do.
Trying to make money.
Yeah, it's like he's going out wrestling and fighting, and you like just fucking with these dudes. He did not stop the killer that killed his uncle.
Right.
Because why? I'm not getting paid for this.
Right.
That's your fucking job.
If he'd have known.
It's like, well, why did you stop him? That's not my job.
Right.
And what happened? Ended up killing his uncle. Completely changed his life from that point on. Because he's like, if I just did what I was supposed to do, if I had done the heroic thing,
right,
instead of being the jackass, the complete asshole, my uncle will still be alive. It's like, so that a lot of times that takes a shift into your life. And when I realized for myself, where I was on my journey, that this wasn't who I wanted the world to see. That I didn't want the world to see this big angry dude, this big angry aggressive guy that people were actually afraid of. People were fucking afraid. And honestly, after a little while, that started to really bother me, because it was like, I wanted to protect myself, but I didn't want the world to be afraid of me.
Nobody gets to know you if they're afraid.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I lost out on a lot of opportunity from people I could have known, opportunities I could have had, because of who I was becoming at that time. So I was like, okay, this has got to change. I gotta change who I am. It's like, because I got to go from being that Venom to being that Spider-Man.
Right. I took it as our other people's perception of us. We sometimes, depending on who they are, we find that very important. We want to know that we are loved and appreciated by our family, our parents, friends, and all that stuff. But if you don't have that support system, or at worst, people are talking down to you, talking bad about you all the time, they're not giving you that support. What a lot of people do is that they take on that persona of the monster that they're being seen as.
Yeah.
So nobody's perception of you is more important than yours. However, when you're only getting negative feedback, you start to take on that persona as well. These people are telling you that you are aggressive and mean and bad and wrong and all this stuff, and a nuisance and all that. And then you start to take that on. It's like, well, shit, I'm going to be that thing and terrorize everybody because this is what I'm obviously this, you know what I'm saying? And they turn themselves into a monster. I believe a lot of these people who end up doing like school shootings and stuff like that, they are becoming the monster that people are either telling them directly or indirectly.
And I had that, I had a couple of those moments where I completely lashed out because I was like, oh, people want to. It's like you were fucking with me so much, you obviously want me to go there.
Right.
Okay. It's like, you want to keep fucking with me? Okay, let's go there.
Right.
And I just hulked out, a couple times in school and throughout life. And whenever it happened, it was fucking terrifying for people. Right. They're like, what the fuck? It's like this, and I'm like, well, people keep fucking with me, so obviously you want me to go there. Let's go there.
Now, what sucks is people who see that in you and still push.
Yeah.
Because whether they get hurt or somebody gets hurt, ultimately you get hurt. And when we don't have that spidey sense of, oh shit, I'm getting ready to kick it into overdrive, we don't have that emotional resilience, we don't have that healing factor, then we do end up hurting the people around us and ourselves with our reckless actions. So yeah, don't become a Venom. Try to be a Spider-Man as best as you can. Now I would be remiss if I didn't say that Venom tried to redeem himself at certain points with Lethal Protector or going off into space. I don't know what he's doing now, but it's just the thought of, if you let that hurt consume you, you will become unrecognizable to yourself. Like Venom.
Because all Venom was armor.
Yeah.
It's like, if you really look at it, it's like all Venom was for Brock was armor.
Yeah.
For him against the world. It's like he had everything that he could have wanted when he was in high school. He was that guy who was the jock and all this good stuff like that. But then life really started kicking his ass.
Right.
And because he wasn't self-aware enough to realize that the hurt that was happening with him, he was like, oh, it's the world that's doing this, and it's his fault, or it's this person's fault, or this stuff. So then when you have that opportunity to take that power back, just like with a lot of the school shootings and a lot of this violence that happens, when people have the opportunity to take that power back, when they feel powerless, they do way more than they need to. I can definitely tell you, I went way farther when I hulked out than was absolutely required. I took things way too far. I mean, people ended up in the hospital because of stuff that I've done. And while I can't say I feel bad about it, because most of the ones who happened, they had it coming, but I definitely didn't need to take it that far. I can definitely say that for sure.
For sure. So these are the different tools and powers that you get when you're taking your hero's journey, because honestly, we haven't defined what this path actually is to us. We talk about what it is, and for those who are in the know, it's kind of like an unspoken thing.
Yeah.
They just call it the path. But for those who are even just realizing that something in my life has to change, I don't even know where to start. That's the starting line.
Yeah.
Is the confusion, the chaos, and the I don't want to be here anymore ness of it is what brought you to us. It's what brought us to each other. It's what brought us to the people that we look to as mentors, because we can't do this alone. We need somebody who's going to show us the best part of ourselves so that we can move forward and be productive members of society. We want to make sure that, even if we're not a superhero to ourselves, we could be a superhero to somebody else.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Your wife, your kids, your girlfriend,
nieces,
your
nephews,
your nephews,
younger siblings,
parents, whatever it may be. It's like a lot of the people we become, we're not just doing it for ourselves. I'm not telling you to do it for other people, because that's not sustainable. That's not gonna last.
Start with you.
But a lot of what we're doing is going to help other people, even if it's just them watching us.
Right.
Even if it's just them, watching you move on your hero's journey, on your path, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
There's always somebody watching you, man. There's always something, and we got to move like that. We got to move like there's always somebody watching us, because when you think of it that way, you're probably going to make different choices. If you know that, your niece or your nephew are watching you, or your sister or your mom or your dad, or, a coworker who, somebody you mentor, if you think in the terms of, there's somebody that's looking up to me, that's watching me, watching how I move and the decisions I make, you're probably going to move in a different way.
For sure. We were having one of our circle meetings once. This was probably close to the beginning of the year,
right?
And it was a new guy that was on there, and he said that he looked at Soul and some of the older brothers on there as action heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, what do you mean? And it wasn't like a superhero, but he called them action heroes because they were men of action. They actually went out and did the things they said they were going to do, like working with other brothers working on channels or working in their businesses or how they were moving with their family. Just personal growth. Like you could see the changes they were making in their lives, even though they were on the other side of the country. So being able to like, you want to be an action hero. You want to be a superhero to somebody, and it just means that you are a man of your word. You're trying to do, you are doing the thing that you said you were going to do.
Absolutely.
You know,
become. A lot of times it's going to be just a point of becoming the hero you always wish you had in your life.
Right.
I heard someone say, it's like, if you didn't have a father in your life, everything like that, strive to become the man. Strive to become the father that you always wish you had.
Yeah.
Is like strive to become the man you always wish you had in your life.
Right.
The mentor you. The things you thought you needed as a kid, become those things.
Right.
So even if you don't have somebody to look up to, that shining light on the hill, that thing that you're shooting for, that goal, that thing you can chase and walk in the footsteps of, strive to become that thing that you always wanted to have. That hero that you always wanted to have save you. Right. Strive to become that man, and man, hopefully, after that, you can save some other people.
For sure.
Because that's honestly all we're trying to do right now. Right. Is just say, sometimes save some of us from ourselves. Right. In a lot of cases. Because I damn sure wish in high school I had somebody to watch that was like, hey man, this is what's going on. This is what's happening with you right now. This is what maybe you need to work on. Maybe you need to take a look at this. Maybe you don't need to, maybe you need to crack that shell open and actually, work on yourself versus trying to put on this armor to protect yourself from the world. Right. Maybe you need to go and become, a strong, capable, dangerous at times, honorable, well-rounded man. Right. Become that warrior that you've been, training to be since you were a kid. Really tap into that and become that. Research that. Become that warrior. And that's really all we're trying to do with this, man. Is just really trying to, help us develop that masculinity and develop that warrior mindset, that superhero mindset.
For sure.
All right, guys. So this has been an awesome one, man. Like I said, we definitely nerded out on this one. Like I said, I warned you guys ahead of time. All right. That we were some nerds. I
apologize
on this stuff. I was about to say I don't apologize at all. So man, but it just shows you that, man, this is gonna look different for everybody. It's like some people might not identify with the superhero or might not identify with the warrior. If you don't, cool. It's like that's my journey. That's his journey. It is what it is. So but figure out what you want to do on your path is the biggest thing. It's like that's what we're really trying to lead to, and hopefully we did that. So definitely check us out on some of the other episodes we've been talking about. We've dug into little pieces of this in certain other episodes and some of the dokudo and some of the other things. This is kind of just a compilation of where we're coming up with some things. Some of the things we're seeing. And how can you use some of the stuff you see in media and in regular life to actually
bring it down
for your advantage. Is the biggest thing. So definitely check us out on the podcast. Any place podcasts are found, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, any place you can find a podcast, even YouTube podcast.
Right.
Also check out the YouTube channel because we are doing a video podcast. If you're listening to us right now, we do a video version on YouTube, so definitely check us out there. Also follow us on all the social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, so definitely check us out and rock with us, guys, because we're going to keep bringing this information, sometimes in a very nerdy way, and we're cool with that, because if you got something to say about it, come see us.
For sure, man.
But definitely keep at it, guys, and keep working yourselves, man, because you much rather be a warrior in a garden
than a gardener in a war.
All right, take it easy.
Peace.
Guys, don't forget to hit that link to gain access to the first 2 lessons of our 8 Inner Gates course, completely on us. Fight your fight.